Well, this is part of getting it mocked up or roughed in. You know, that looks cobbled to pieces, but if a guy gets a bit and kind of works that back, trim it up, make it look a little decent, and then I've got another piece that I could put over that and weld it out. That's all structure, man. That stuff is hard as a rock. And then I took the filler panel and made a filler panel here for the old wiring harness that came through here. I cut a big square in this, and the wiring harness wants to come right here beside the brake booster, and we had to re-drill the holes for the brake booster. I used the 2 top holes, and then I've got to trim this stud off, so I got to put all this back together again to get a mock-up. Now this gas pedal, it works, granted. We got full throttle. It's not hitting the floorboard. It's up high. It looks good with the brake pedal. But what we got to do that's rough fit, okay, guys? Now I'm gonna trim, and I've marked it. I'm gonna trim. It says trim. We got to cut this piece off here. It's some kind of structure. This thing needs to go over probably 1/2 inch. When I drawed that up, it pulled it over that way. But it's got something, whatever. I'm just trying to get it in there enough to where we can work with it, okay? So, once we get it cut out on the other side, this is double paneled. I'll show you. And right there, the gas pedal, it needs welded all the way out. I got some welding wire, and then, you know, we got to fix all these little cut marks or whatever, too. That looks rough. Show you here on the firewall what's going on with it. Right here, we've got it patched out. I just, you know, kind of eyeballing whatever. We got to trim that to where we got an easy way to pull that in and out. Now this throttle cable is wrapped up here. I know we can't be over this way because it's got a box that goes here. Now that box is just not going to work. We'll have to do something with that. So the intake's loose, obviously, and we'll have to put this wiring harness through here. We gotta, next thing's next. We're pretty much done. We got it mocked up enough to where we know what we got to do now. I'm going to switch over my efforts to getting this slave cylinder in there, and we're probably going to have to hook up these brakes. We'll pull all that stuff out of there, do whatever we got to do. And I got to take and drill this box out. I got to take the inner fender out. Obviously that needs trimmed up a bit to make it work, and then hopefully we can get some of these fuel or brake lines off of that ABS pump, and maybe get an adapter kit to where we can hook up front and back brake lines. You know, it's pretty simple. It's just a proportionary valve, and it's got a mount. But we got to stick our wiring harness in there. Once we get that cut out enough to get that in there, we got to stick a wiring harness right up through here and kind of see where we can mount that proportionary valve close to all this. That way we ain't got too much brake line work to do. Now I did have to cut that out. It's tack welded in. That's just stabbed in there with some self tappers just to fill up the hole for now. I want to go ahead and put the steering rack back in it and check for these bolts that, or the studs that come through here. This stud here was hitting on the knuckle for the arm, and we had to trim the bottom of this plate off so all this can go together. And we mounted up the brake pedal, and then it's got a little clip that holds, you know, it'll work that slave or whatever. But we got to hook all this back up. I got to put the pedal rack back up there, trim this stud off, and we trimmed 3 studs here and another little bracket that just kind of held some insulation up there. And then we had to make sure that we had room and didn't cut the stud here to this emergency brake. Okay, but you know, we're going to rough it in. It'll have to come in and out probably 4 or 5 more times. And we got to make this look decent, so this will all have to come back off. You can't weld that out. I might put some studs on that or something, just from the other side, drill a hole completely through it and kind of bolt it up. and weld it from the back side. I got a way to get it here, and I got a way to get it there. Probably get it right there too. So we might put 3 bolts in this gas pedal to kind of stiffen it up, make it beautiful. But it'll take some work, and we'll just weld it from the other side. I'll weld them studs on the back side of the firewall. That way the stud comes through, and we can get a nut on at least 3 holes. And I would feel better about it. It's got one in behind it there, a way to get something, but you can't get nothing. And obviously we got to move this over. Probably, it looks to be eyeballed about a 1/2 inch. So it'll have to be in there pretty much perfect, but we got to trim out the other side of the firewall. We got to take this piece out, pull that all loose, trim this to where it fits a little better. Once we get it to where it's pretty close, a lot better than it is, and we can tack weld it and weld it all out. And like I say, we're going to have to put some long bolts through the other side to make a stud to where we can take that pedal off and on as needed. Never know. I don't want to weld it out solid, but I'm going to bolt it up pretty solid. It'll be pretty much dead nuts. You know, it's double panel, so it might try to do something funky there, but we'll just take and weld it out from the other side and just put some nuts on it to kind of hold it. It ain't got to be super solid, but that right there, that's pretty tough. It's hard to get through that, so I got to use a self-tapper, long self-tapper, go through that, get a hole drilled in it, and then we'll put us 2 or 3 bolts in there. Probably 3 bolts. There's enough for 3 bolts. And then, you know, we have to go back and kind of tack weld them little holes up, tack weld that little hole up. You know, this is rough fit. I'm going to leave it the way it is until we can get it to where it's good. Put a little spray paint on it. It needs grind out. Take a die grinder and kind of clean it up or whatever. And then obviously we got to build a box for this. I'm going to make a dog box. It's just a way to get in here. If not, you're not going to be able to get them bolts if you need to take the motor out or something. And then we'll have to cut the box up for the heater and all that. You know, once we get that up there, get it solid, get a box made to where you can pull it in and out with nuts and whatever. I'll cut that box, make sure we can get it through there, kind of dress it up. I got a dash, we can cap it off. And once we get it all mocked up, and maybe hopefully get it started and running, we can take it all apart, take the motor out, weld it all out solid, put some seam sealer, spray paint it, scuff it a little bit. So it's coming along. It's a long process. We're trying. Next thing's next, though. We're probably going to pull that out. I might try to cut that out a little better or whatever. Today it'll look scabby until we can get it, you know, patched in or whatever. It's double walled. I mean, I couldn't do nothing with it. I had to make that bigger because it's just the way it is. A guy could take a piece of pipe and put it over that and weld that piece of pipe out or something, maybe. That's saying a lot. It's a lot. It'll probably be like that, get seam sealed up and look decent. It's just the way it's going to have to be. It's just an old truck. And then, you know, we've got the motor on the motor mounts, and we got to work on the brakes and getting this plate out. And hopefully we can eyeball it enough to where we can eventually figure out what we need to make those brake lines tap in to what we got. It's the same thing, same concept. You know, you got a front and a back, and then it splits from the front and the back. It gets less power to the back brakes. We know what's what as far as getting the back brakes going, and I can look it up on the internet. So you got 2 lines, and it splits it off to 4 lines. 2 wheels on the front, 2 wheels on the back. That's a pretty simple setup, and it works. This here, it works off of some kind of ABS. You know, it does the computer thing. I don't want that. I want a throttle cable when I start it. If I can get it started, it'll run hopefully pretty decent. Everything's kind of loose fit. We're going to keep whittling. I got to get this out, get the inner fender out, get the slave on it, see what it wants in order to make it hook it up to all these brake lines that we've already got. We just got to make sure we can get our wiring harness in here, because our wiring harness has got a box. The box will be like right in here somewhere for all the other stuff. So And then we'll have to tap into all the wire, headlights, tail lights, blah, 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 windshield wiper motor. So, and then, you know, we're going to be working on fuel lines. We got to get the brakes going first. Once we get the brakes, after we do all this. But I'm probably just going to get this out today, get the wheel well out, get all these spot welds drilled out or whatever. We got to take self-tappers and do it and then drill it and get it popped loose and get it out because it's solid. That's some solid stuff, man. That's heavy duty. I wish I had just a torch. I'd just take a torch and start burning them out and then pop it loose and do whatever. And, you know, that's going to have to be trimmed up a lot more in order for that slave to be in there. And we got to make sure that we can get this out of the way without kinking the lines. So if we can do it without kinking the lines and kind of put it back the way it was, just different. Kind of what we're doing, you know. Hopefully it don't look too rough. But with seam sealer and spray paint, that makes us the welder we're not.